graph shows how prices are manipulated in indices. Commodities and currencies on stock exchanges around the world in order to gain financial advantages using insider information, and thus damage public investors and US pension funds. It shows how it works, who is behind it, and why billions of dollars in damage are caused as a result. The strength of criminal energy in this market is demonstrated by hundreds of press releases like this one, in which banks were sentenced to fines amounting to hundreds of millions. What happens exactly? A CFD trader bets on falling or rising prices in an index. So it's a very simple strategy. What we found was that exactly when the CFD product was bought, the base price, in this example the German index, rebounded at that very second and reached exactly the level where the position had to be sold. You can see in the graph when the short positions were bought when the DAX was falling. From that very moment on, the DAX rose almost 100 points to the price level for stop fishing and then collapsed again. In this example, the DAX was pushed up almost 100 points, causing the CFD customer to lose their entire investment. This randomness, that the base price always changes direction exactly when a CFD investor places their order, indicates clear manipulation. It is impossible for this coincidence to occur exactly the same for every trade. I can prove this with thousands of documents. CFD brokers are basically the water heaters for the liquidity providers who operate in the background and in secret. They provide the money for the CFD financial instrument. But as insiders they receive buy or sell levels from the CFD brokers where their customers have to close and cover the positions. These levels are deliberate, controlled by the price levels of the liquidity providers. Capital.com writes on its website about its products that 82% lose their money, not because they are complex, but because their liquidity providers are massively manipulated. In addition, new customers are always subjected to a test by the CFD broker before they are allowed to trade in CFD products. Only then are they allowed to trade in these products. How can it be that 82% still lose all their money due to a lack of knowledge of the product? A lie that must cover up the manipulation. In the following graphics I show you trades with absolute equality of price level and time of trades via CFD brokers from lows or highs in the strike price. I also show you videos that prove that in the exact seconds of buying a product the strike price turns in the opposite direction. Basically, I can control US indices, etc. by buying products via Capital.com and global brokers. Basically, at the moment of purchase it goes in the opposite direction until it is stopped out. You can see this in the following oil US dollar graph. At 3 p.m. I buy a long position when the oil price is rising. In exactly that second, the oil price starts to fall by almost $1 until the position has to be sold at exactly the lowest point at 7:03 p.m. due to a lack of liquidity. You can see the trade evidence in the following graph with ID number and times. What happens when trading CFD products and what criminal acts take place is clearly shown in the following graphic in the DAX. The customer buys 15 short positions, while the DAX is falling. And at the exact moment of purchase the price jumps up by almost 100 points, after which the positions have to be sold. Typical stop fishing case. The highest and lowest points correspond exactly to the low and high peak in the base price. You can see that the trading programs of the liquidity providers have only one goal at the exact moment of purchase: to trade against the CFD customer and fish out the position. The second the purchase is made, the DAX goes from falling to rising, and the second the emergency sale is made, it goes from rising to falling. The movements are massive. The main argument of the opponents of this evidence is often that it is not worth it for a customer. But the fact is that with $10,000, a customer can place a value of $4 million on the stock exchange. The liquidity providers therefore always know where such massive positions can be bought cheapest or sold most expensively. The liquidity providers act in a kind of cartel and buy or sell the shares in a kind of trading carousel, with the last to do so always being the stocked-out customer. However, these fraudulent games also affect other investors whose positions are also sold to a stop position, even though it only jumps up in the short term because an LQ is cheating. Below you can see several videos and screenshots on capital.com that show how liquidity providers' trading programs manipulate the market by placing massive counter trades against CFD product customers, thereby manipulating the overall market. It is therefore possible for me to make indices jump up or down by making purchases. You can see this in the videos with buys when prices are rising, blue box, or buys when prices are falling. Red box, you will notice that the base price when buying always goes in the exact opposite direction. This is the case for 90% of all trades. Each trade is recorded with detailed IDs, price levels and time. In the following film, the Nasdaq Tech 100 is bought with 2,000 short positions when there is a massive downward trend, and at the purchase point of exactly 21,444 points. The liquidity provider's manipulation program kicks in and works against the CFD customer's product and pulls the Nasdaq up again. And here too, the purchase point was exactly the lowest point. The same thing happens in this video. The DAX German 40 drops. We buy short in the trend at 21,896 points, and that is exactly when the base price goes into a rebound. Here too, the time and price level are exactly the same as in the trade. Here the same thing with a high peak in the Nasdaq Tech 100. I intend to cap the Nasdaq, buy long positions, and what a miracle. Exactly when I buy, the index sinks downward. In the next video, always look at the boxed fields. They always indicate the time of purchase of the CFD product at which the base price always jumps in the opposite direction. Always a coincidence? In every trade, there is a legal ruling that states that if coincidences coincide with an extremely high degree of similarity and density, this indicates a criminal offense.